Welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, breaking ground into a new dawn on a new day, getting us towards Minmus, the smallest of the moons around Kerbin, and we are out here just counting down to our first maneuver. While that's happening, let's go and take a look at what's going to happen. So we've got 3 maneuvers to make. One is going to get us out towards Minmus. The second is going to be mid-course plane change, just a little bit, to get us a lot closer to basically Minmus, and the third one is going to bring us into a very high low orbit, just so that we can do what we've done previously, which is to get lots of science. And we have more than enough delta V to do this, I think, so we should be fine. And this is an extended LV909 stage, a couple of 400 tanks, a couple of science juniors, and more science inside our crew hatch. So we have pretty much our part count full of science, apart from, I think, barometer. So I think we've got the thermometer in there and some bioscience and stuff like that. So I guess we should get going. Shouldn't really much matter where I do this. It's not going to be terribly exact, but I want to get close to Minmus once we're out there. So let's just accelerate forwards. And let me just turn off this, so we're not going to have time warps or audio alerts until we're somewhere out there. So let's just bring that in. So 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second, and burn. So this is 900 meters per second. I'll see you at the mid-course plane change. And here we are at mid-course plane change. It's roughly around the right kind of area. I don't need to be, again, terribly exact when we're at this far. It's 15 minutes away, but that's actually quite far in terms of distance. So we're going to focus the view back over here on Minmus, and you'll see where we're currently going to come in and where we need to come in, or at least to get really close to get some nice science. We're not going to be landing with this craft. It's mainly to get the flyby mission, because we won't get the landing mission until the flyby mission is done. You see here we've got gather scientific data from Minmus and return to Kerbin from a flyby of Minmus. So we could go for some kind of free return, but Minmus is tiny, so it's not going to be too much of an issue. We wouldn't get much of a boost back from it anyway. Regardless, let's just line back up to the maneuver node and get ourselves ready right about there. And yes, so we only have 18 meters per second to actually take up. So burn time 1 second. So let's just use a low value of our throttle to get that more accurately. And let's just bring ourselves following that maneuver node. Whoops. And how close are we there? We're 1.6 meters per second. You can see where we're coming in. So let's just be quite careful right there. So that seems to be broadly online. And that's the second maneuver. The third one, we can then bring ourselves in. Do I have the third one queued up, or did I destroy it? I think it was based on, yeah. It's based on what I did, and I slightly overshot on the original burn. So let's bring that all the way in, and we'll get it to the right position. And then, of course, we can play around with that with the usual nodes to bring that orbit in or out. It doesn't take very much to actually do that. We're already into an orbit at this particular point. And once we're into that orbit, we've got to figure out how much it takes to get back to Kerbin. So we'll do this minimum orbit first of all. So let's bring ourselves all the way in. So turn off SAS, bring ourselves to around about here, warp in. And you can see a wonderful little green mint ice cream moon there. And in comes our craft, hopefully. How much energy have we got left? We've got 30, that's more than enough. And now we just need to turn on SAS, point retrograde, and that'll get us close to the maneuver node. So it's right next to us here. And it's 7 seconds of burn time to actually do this. So we don't have to be, we don't have to prepare for it ahead of time. We just warp in. I'll give you a nice close-up view of the moon while we actually do this. Let's get ourselves right to here. And there we go, right on target. So 7 seconds. That'll bring us into an orbit. And let's just finish that off a little bit. 7, 6. And there's the orbital camera, so that we know we've already succeeded that. So now we're in orbit around Minmus. Great, which also means we have a bunch of stuff we can do. We're probably in space low for material study, so we should that's space near. So we will going to keep that, and then we'll move that into our container storage. So that's one of the material studies bays down. That's the top one down, and then of course we can take all the rest. So including the crew report. So mystery goo, temperature scan, crew report. We can also, while we're here, just get an EVA report from Minmus's lowlands. Keep that experiment. Zoom in. Whoops, and I'll just board again. And now we can just go and collect all that again. And we'll get even more EVA report requests as we actually go through various different biomes. It's the only thing that matters as far as collecting this on a biome basis from orbit. So we are going to want to perhaps lower our orbit to get more science. However, we need to take a look at how much delta V we've got left. We've got 405 to play with, which means we need to just plan for what it actually takes to get back to Kerbin. So if we were saying going up from up here and add a maneuver, we're going to be going left here. So that's broadly speaking, we are in the right kind of place in the orbit, although that might change. And then we would just, in fact, no, we wouldn't do it up here because that's the wrong side. Well, in terms of wrong side, in terms of how much it would actually cost to actually get us back. Let's take a look, just a practical look at this. What would it cost to get us back if we did it up here? Let's get our Apo and whoops. I need to get that moved around. Can I actually get myself back here? So yeah, it's going to be pretty wide, and then I'll have to do another maneuver going this way. So let's just forget that for a second. Let's go at the bottom instead. So we're going around this way. So can I actually even go at the bottom? I'd have to wait to the other side of the orbit if I did that. Not good. Nope, so we're going to have to go at the top regardless. At least if we go now. All right, so let's plan it out. So add a maneuver and increase prograde. So now we're back around Kerbin, essentially. And then we'd do another maneuver here, add a maneuver that way, and let's just bring our retrograde in. And yes, we get interaction with the moon, which is not something that I want. So let's see what our peri would be, and let's bring ourselves in. So that's going to be around about there. All right, so what's that second maneuver in terms of delta V? 250. Okay, not great. Has to be said. And maneuver 1 is 36. So we have around 200 delta V to play with. Should we, sorry, hang on, no, we have about 100 delta V to play with. We're only on 405. So, yeah, so what will it actually take for us to get into our lower orbit? So let's just cancel these maneuvers, and let's just take a look at what the lower orbit actually will cost us. Let's say just around about now. Again, I'm not going to worry too much about this. Let's just bring ourselves in, and there we are. So 55 meters per second, and then we could just obviously move it around to the next orbit there. Yeah, so 55. So we've got enough to be able to do that. And then, of course, once we're into that closer orbit, we should then be able to just use the same delta V to get back out again. So we have enough to actually bring ourselves in and get some more science. And in we come for the second time. I've already got some space high, so now we just need to burn, pointing at the maneuver node, and let's just bring our orbit in a little bit. So let's just fast forward until we get to the burn time. Let's go forward a little bit faster. So 30 seconds, 20 seconds, and it's only 2 seconds of burn time, so it's not very much whatsoever. Anywhere around here will do. So there we go. 1, 2, and go. That should do fine and should keep us in space low. We've now got 350 meters per second to play with. So I'm just going to doubly confirm that that will actually get us back. Well, not much I can do if we can't, so I don't need to worry about it too much. I'm just going to go and collect all the rest of the EVA reports. Remember, we're now in a polar orbit, so we'll be collecting all of that. And going to scientific data from Minmus may only apply... Well, it doesn't say from around Minmus, so I just wonder if that means actually landing. If it means landing, don't worry, we'll send a satellite out there, just like we did with the moon. We've got a launcher that will already do exactly that. It's easier to get to Minmus and get landed, and I don't need to do a suicide burn for it. However, return to Kerbin from a flyby of Minmus, that is something we'll do anyway, and we'll see whether it counts from Minmus, because we've gathered it all. In fact, what we could do, just to see whether that will actually work, is just, now that we've collected all the science, let's just make sure... in here in the science bay, I got a temperature sensor right there. Can I actually get to it It's just embedded just below the actual surface of this thing. See that right there? That's the temperature sensor. Yep, I know. I did that wrong. That's going to be annoying. Okay, let me see whether... Oh, hang on. Can I actually select it? Come on. Nope. Fine. That's the goo canister. I need to get to that thing right there. No, you're not going to give it to me. Oh, well. I can't really select that. I suppose I could go for something manual through science here and now, maybe? I want individual control of the experiment. Fine, no problem. Anyway, so I will go and get that sorted and see if I can get it. Otherwise, I'll see you once we're ready to go back. Okay, not that I could send back the temperature scan anyway. That was in there because I don't have an aerial. I don't have an antenna on this thing because I used the polar power count. Regardless, everything is coming back with us, apart from these Science Juniors. So just one quick tip, if you have X-Science installed, I do recommend that you do have X-Science installed. If you type space near Minmus on this and make sure you've got this button selected to show experiments available on the vessel, you can then see everything you've got or not got. And in my case, I've gone through and done all the AVA reports in space near Minmus. So we've got all of those available. And that's ready for us to come back now. So you'll see very below us now in my nav ball, I've got a maneuver node. That's because I've plotted out a maneuver that will get us all the way back. And because of the way we're positioned, it will actually not take very much delta V. We've got 350 and it will only take 161, which is nice. Because we are, however, inclined, we're not exactly equatorial, we're just going to get an angled approach. So it's not going to come in exactly flat, and that's not a problem. You'll see this angle going up and down as you're actually bringing the delta V up. So we need to just scroll all the way in, and let's get ourselves to just before this maneuver. So let's warp here. And in fact, let me just decelerate that for a second, turn off SAS, then warp there. It's 8 seconds maneuver, so we don't have to get precisely on it, but close would be preferable when we don't have much delta V left. So around will come. It's not very fast because we're close to the moon, and you can't time warp fast when you're close to the moon, but that, well, even physical time warp's not going to help in this particular case. So there we go. We're approaching. It's going to be 29 seconds, so let's just turn on the SAS, approach the maneuver node as we would normally. Line up. I may get the enhanced nav ball mod back as well. What that does is it'll actually decrease the size of all these markers. So you can increase the size of the maneuver node to be half the size of this thing, and decrease the pointing node, the thing that's right in front of me right now, the yellow wings. You can decrease the size of that, so you can get it really accurately positioned. However, yeah, we'll wait for next time perhaps. So 1 second, 0, and there's the burn. So we're going to bring that all the way up, and we'll see how close it actually gets us to atmospheric entry. It should be pretty close. Overshot a little bit, I think. So yeah, what are we actually at if I just remove this? I think that's an actual intercept with the planet. So perhaps we should just spin around and make sure I don't set myself on a course to hitting Kerbin. I mean, I suppose we do want to hit Kerbin, but we don't want to hit Kerbin terribly fast. So let's bring ourselves back up until we've got a periaps there at 13:28. That is more than good enough. Turn off SAS again and fast forward towards the planet, I guess. So at this point we can just say we want to warp all the way to around about here and warp there. So we don't have to do anything else except wave goodbye to the green moon, which has already disappeared off my screen. There it goes, off into the distance. And now we have a full load of science. So we're going to get rid of this bottom stage. Both of these are coming away, both the tanks and the engine. And now I actually do have a decoupler below the science bay. And let's just shut that science bay once it actually pops up. And here comes Kerbin. Or rather, here we come towards Kerbin. And let's close that science bay up. And there's not very much we can do now. We don't have a huge amount of fuel if we need to adjust, but we should be fine, I think. Let's just backspace to get back to our ship. Don't do that twice. That is the shortcut for destroying your own ship. So 28. Now, I did get a comment from last episode saying, couldn't you just come in at 55, with the engine, or 60, and use that to aerobrake? You absolutely can. The downside, well, first of all, if you do that on your bingo fuel, you better be prepared for what it will actually do to your trajectory. I'm not going to try it on this particular run, but if you go too high, all that's really going to happen is it's going to slow you down a little bit. It's going to bring down your APO. And when it brings down your APO, that just means you're going to go around again. And that can be good. That'll save you a lot of fuel. For example, in Duna, or Mars, in a real solar system, you could just aerobrake in the higher atmosphere, and you may not actually hit the ground. You may come back out of the atmosphere again and go around. I have done that in a previous playthrough. I think that's certainly on video. I think it was actually on Duna, and we came back around again, and it's perfectly fine. So yeah, you can aerobrake if you want to. However, these craft are perfectly fine at actually not so much aerobraking, but aerobraking to land in one. So let's bring ourselves all the way in. And then we should be able to discard the lower stage. Sad though it is. It's got us all the way out there and all the way back. And make sure I've collected everything. Make sure I've not got anything remaining in both of those science juniors. And we should be good. All right, so we're going to be decelerating now. Just coming behind the planet, so it's hard to see, I appreciate. So I'll just zoom in. And we'll SAS up. Point at the retrograde marker. There we go. And let's just send it in one direction. So why don't we just send it that way this time? And off it goes. And now we're pointing retrograde with no SAS, and we still have more than enough electric charge. At this early stage of the game, you don't necessarily need solar panels on manned, as long as you remember to keep disabling the SAS. The SAS will burn electric charge, well, consume electric charge. Okay, so in we go towards the atmosphere. And now we should be fine as we are. I think this should be still aerodynamically stable. I really, really hope so. And I'll see you back on the ground, unless tragedy strikes, which of course that never happens. Would you look at that? 484 science. Okay, so I think that was over 400 in one trip. So yeah, 2 material studies. Crew reports by a lot, temperature, mystery goo times 2, etc, etc, adds up to a whole bunch of science. So that's well worth doing if you're following along. And Jeb's got some experience, but that's not important right now because, first of all, we have 750,000 for doing that. There was lots of, let's just look at the archives. Explore Minmus. Yes, that's complete. Did I not get stuff for flying by certain areas? Or was that just me misremembering? It could be me misremembering. Regardless, we got that. And then we got this Explore Kerbin mission back. So that's another one we have to do. I'm not going to worry about that right now, though, because I can now afford to get out of that parts upgrade hole. So we can go up to 450,000 and then earn more money from more different missions, or... well, no, we still can't afford the recent development upgrade, but we'll have to fairly soon. So why don't we just go ahead with this one anyway? It'll let us build more capable landers for the moon and for Minmus. So 300 grand and 484 science. So we should be able to pick up all the nodes we actually want now, including the breaking ground stuff. So miniaturization, yep, we'll take, and space exploration will take. We're going to want landing at some point. Which ones do I want to prioritize? I definitely want heavy rocketry. That gets us the Poodle, which is a great engine, the Skipper, and the Kickback solid fuel booster. Okay, so we have 214 science. We could hold on to that, and then we can get one more node that's higher level. Not sure whether I want to do that or not. At least not yet. Although that's quite important, the mobile processing lab, but we'll have to see how good this new breaking ground stuff is. The experiment control station, the central, well, sorry, that's the central station, the Goob ED monitor, and the solar panel, whatever it's called, photovoltaic panel Ox Stat PG. So let's look at that next. And so I think I'm just going to go, why don't we just get everything? Everything that we can actually get without upgrading this, we now have. 34 science remaining, and there's probably a lot more. Well, the traditional next way of getting a lot more science when you need it is to do a Minmus hopper. You hop around between different biomes and then collect it in a material can, etc. And one of the storage containers. Okay, so we now technically have those breaking ground equipment. Now, I've not flown them before, but we should actually try them. And why don't we see if we can deploy them on Kerbin itself, and let's see if that's doable. So here we are on the launch pad, and you'll see I've got this cargo unit, cargo storage unit with 3 items in it. And I'll show you how to put well, you just basically drag and drop them into these inventory slots from the VAB menu. So when you're out here, you have this cargo storage unit, and of course we're going to be in space eventually, but you also have an inventory slot for yourself. So the first thing we're going to probably need is the experiment storage station. Whoops, and don't drag, just click and drop. And now we have that available to us. So if we just go and head over to the side of the launch pad over here, and so that we can basically put this down somewhere, you'll see this little drop symbol. You can basically do that, and you'll switch to a mode whereby you can control where to drop it. So I can rotate this around with J and L, kind of nice. I'm going to leave it pointing inwards, and then we can press space to place the part down, and there it goes. So we can then interact, well, we could interact with it. There we go. That's cool. Can't really do anything just yet, but we can disable the part and pick it back up again. Good to know. That does mean, however, we're going to need to go and pick up the other 2 items, and we'll go and bring them over. So there it is. Is that now in range? Hopefully it is. If I grab the... Yep, it is in range. Good. So I don't need to go terribly far. And let's just go into drop mode. And I wonder if this is going to connect automatically, I wonder, because it depends on whether it's modeling Kerbal attachment system and Kerbal inventory system or not. So let's actually drop that down. Okay. And can we actually connect this up? It's deploying. There is our cultivate select panel. It is not pointing the... Oh, hang on. It is moving around to point towards the right direction. Yeah, look at that. Will that track? Is it going to stop? Hopefully it will stop right about now. Yeah, that's good. I like that. And it does say connected. So are we getting any power? Total power needed. Total power available. So you don't, unlike Kerbal inventory system then, you don't have to have flexible hoses connecting the various parts. Good to know. I do kind of like putting the hoses together though, but that's just me. Maybe I'm a sucker for punishment. And then we'll just get the mobile goo canister, and let's get rid of that storage control unit, cargo storage unit even, and let's put this down. So let's drop you right around, let's say here, and let's see that deploy. There we are, and we have our goo, and we have a camera watching the goo. Good. And now hopefully, so science rate, science transmitted, science per hour, and presumably once we have enough power, once this has finished its stuff, we should be able to actually do this. Power units required 1, power units produced 0. I hope it doesn't need 2 of these panels. That'll be annoying. Let me check. And yes, it does need 2 photovoltaic panels, which means you can't fit 1 setup in a single cargo can. You need 2. And I went and did that. I redeployed them, so we've now got 2 panels. And you'll see this monitor here requires, well, it requires power, first of all. Power units required. And the, whoops, not that one. This one also requires power, and it shows you total power for the whole thing. Also, you'll see up here, science 0.02 per hour. So not a lot. So this is long-term deployment. But you can't just do this. You can't just skip forwards, because as soon as you skip forwards, it goes back to science 0 per hour. And then it powers back up again. So it goes unpowered as soon as you go into time warp. Okay. So can it deploy? Is it on the surface of a planet? Well, it is sort of on the surface of a planet, but yeah, so that's fine for me, I guess. So these, I guess, will be dropping it on the surface, leaving them there, and then we'll take off. Maybe we can use these sort of as landing leg bases, so we can use them as a much wider set of landing legs. However, we're going to go and pick up these parts, bring them back, and then we'll have to remember to deploy them onto a planet, and then maybe we can come back to actually transmit the science once they have enough. I don't see any extra toggles in here just yet, so maybe it has to have a certain amount of science, which I can't fast forward to actually do. So yeah, let's just go and pick up this part, and it should retract. There we go. And Bob's looking immensely pleased with himself. And of course we can just grab it from here, and we should just be able to hover over and drop it. Same thing is going to be true with the others, so I'll do those off camera. But pick up part. And there we go. So while we're not going to do the landing this episode, we're going to be doing it next. So I want to give you guys an opportunity to critique and show you improvements that you're going to put together yourself, maybe, for your own landers. So in this case, we have our usual kind of lander with the Mark 1 lander can. You'll notice it has no return pod. That's because one of the missions we've got is to actually go and rescue persons. So if we send Valop in here to go and do a landing on Minmus or something, then we will have a docking port here. And is that the right way around? It looks like it's the wrong way around. No, it was the right way around. I'm just seeing things. So yeah, we can just stick that on top, and that's the docking port junior, so that we can go and rendezvous with this in orbit with a different craft entirely. Now, we don't have any pods with 2-man capability yet, so if we are going to do a rescue craft, we'd have to stack Mark 1 command pods, and that's perfectly fine. We just have to make sure that they can actually come back down through the atmosphere, or you end up with a recovery craft that consists of another lander can with a heat shield and a command pod on top, which is much more aerodynamically stable than 2 of these command pods on top of the other. However, it doesn't really much matter either way. A little bit more expensive to go with the lander can approach, but then you can just put a larger heat shield underneath and away you go. So we've got 2 of these cargo storage units, and they both have the same contents at the moment. Yep. So in one of them, I'm going to get rid of the first 2 things. There we go. So we've only got the photovoltaic panel, and in this one we've got photovoltaic panel, the control station, and the goo monitor. And then we've got 4 small fuel tanks, the Oscar Bs, sticking out to act as the base for the legs. These, let's just see, what's the actual, well, one of these contain fuel and these don't, but what's the actual size of this in terms of mass? Well, dry mass is 0.2 tons, and the cargo, let's have a look at that. What's the cargo? 0.05 tons. So the cargo units are a lot lighter if you didn't need the extra fuel. I've got the extra fuel for a little bit of safety. You'll see we've got 2,300 meters per second in vacuum, and this whole thing is going to be in vacuum, of course. That's enough to get us all the way to Minmus and land. It doesn't need very much to land on Minmus. But we probably want to reserve as much of that as possible, which means we probably want some kind of injection stage. So I'm going to have some kind of payload bay on here. So we're going to have a decoupler. In fact, just before I do that, let's take a look at the difference. 2332 in thrust to weight ratio in vacuum is 1.69. That's huge as far as Minmus is concerned. So why don't we take a look at what will happen if we use a spark engine. So a spark is obviously a lot smaller, or we could even, we don't have the side mounted ones yet available, so we'll have to just go for a regular spark. So let's put that on instead. If wanted to actually attach to the right node, please attach to the middle. There we go. So that's 2,500, and we still get 0.63, which again is more than good enough, certainly for the Minmus, and I think even for the Moon as well. So that's much more compact. Obviously it's lighter, and we're good to go. Now that's that is a decoupler, but I'm probably going to space things out a little bit more. So we are going to need a structural element to go underneath that, I think. And then all of this will drop away once we get rid of the payload. Once the payload basically undocks. So we're going to want to get the payload protective shell, and this may be a little bit large. For this, it's going to look a little bit ridiculous. We can't get the next airstream protective shell up from this, so there's nothing much I can do about that other than try to build this as tightly as I actually can by moving to there and then bringing this up like this. It's not too bad. It's not too bad, and bringing the top up as probably as high as I actually can. Yeah, I mean, for Kerbal Space Program, that's not too bad. Which is saying something. And then, of course, we've got to fit everything else below it. So, typical here, we have the payload will detach with a clamshell, and we'll bring up the ejection force. Of course, the separator is above that, so this whole thing will drop away, which means I don't need to worry about any more separators, at least until we get lower down. Technically, we can use the larger tanks now, like these. So which would look ridiculous given the fact I've only got this. But let's go with the smaller one first, and before we actually decide to go to a large rocket. And then we have to go into engines, grab ourselves an LV909 or something. And is that capable of doing anything? 0.69, and that gives us 2000 delta V with that. What would we get with something a little bit more capable? Putting a single injection stage, we get 1200. That's enough to do a lot of the stuff needed to get out to Minmus, or indeed the moon. So that's pretty good. That's top 2 stages. Then we'll get another nice coupler, decoupler, DD12. And let's hope that the bottom stages here can actually take off. We'll see that very shortly. We should be able to get off the ground without much of a problem. In fact, I even have the 800 fuel tank now. So why don't we just... that's just going to be a single 400. But beneath that, let's get 2 800s instead. And let's get a 45 engine. Swivel. And that will get us 1.28. That's not quite enough. And it will get us... Well, it won't get us into orbit, certainly. So I think this bottom stage might be worthwhile us thinking about the larger engines. Even though we can get away without it. I mean, if we didn't want to do that, what we could do is go to 3. Yes, it's a tall, thin rocket at this point. But we can add 2 thuds onto the side. And that, once we get all of them firing at the same time, will get us 1.67. That's actually fine. So with third engines, we get 2000 delta V, which will get us most of the way towards the orbit. And what we might want to do is to get us a little bit more sort of capability in this first stage. We need something like 3200 for orbit. So we need another 1000 delta V. We can do the usual approach of either going with these thumpers, which would certainly get the job done, although they tend to last quite a long time, or we can just go with our initial hammers like that. And let's just see what this would actually look like if we did that. So let's just grab, I don't know, some kind of coupler, radial coupler. Yeah, let's look at this from a single point of view. So let's just grab one of those, dock this to the side with no symmetry, grab both, and then let's just put this on either side. Don't need to worry about the aerodynamics just yet. I just want to make sure of how much delta V we're going to get. It's not going to give us all that much. Let's just rearrange this. So it's going to go into the main stage. And then after that, we're going to separate them. So all that stage needs to be stage 6 and stage 5. So those two added together will get us, what, 2500? It's not great. We'd like more than that if possible. And that we're going to get by moving to the next size up. So if we go to the thumpers, we're going to move this up to about here, go down to single symmetry mode and grab the thumpers. And then here we should be able to grab both of those. And you probably want to attach struts here. It's not been too bad for me, but just in case you may want to think about struts. And in fact, I'm going to move those up a little bit just so the nozzles are roughly aligned. Okay, and then we can just grab our nose cones. How big are those? Are those much bigger? No, I kind of like these, unless the mass is different. Well, at least double the mass, but I do kind of like them a lot nicer. They look more like SRBs rather than just weird, very, very rounded nose cones. Okay, so we want them all firing at once. And this gets us 2700, which is a lot better. I might want even more, but that will certainly do. Most of the injection stage will then be done by this. The AJ, not the AJ, I was going to say AJ10. The LV909 will get us, first of all, circularization into orbit, and then most of the injection over towards the moon or Minmus or wherever else. So that is our straightforward rocket to Minmus for a lander. And of course we can take off and come back. We just can't come back all the way into the atmosphere. So that's one disadvantage there. And I did just forget, I think, the decoupler. No, I didn't forget the decoupler. That's fine. So then we decouple our boosters right here. We would then continue flying on the center stage, and then decouple and fire this stage. Then we would at some point lose the payload fairings. then separate, and then finally we have the final thing with no parachute, obviously, because we can't get back. So, Landertron 1, I think is what I'm going to call it for now. Landertron 1 will fly next episode. What do you think is going to happen? Will it blow up? Who knows? But it's 18 grand per flight. And whoever ends up there is going to up in orbit. So we want, as Jeb has already got 2 stars, we want Valentina to go there. Bob isn't going to go that way. Valentina's going to go. And she's going to get 2 stars because of it, because she's going to go to Minmus probably first. It's easier to land on. And then Jeb will have to rescue her coming back. I suppose a scientist would do better with putting the stuff down. But we don't have 2 man. I mean, we could put another capsule on top, and that will be sending 2 people at once. But that seems a little bit risky, even for me. So we'll see if a pilot can actually deploy the stuff. You'll probably get more science with an actual scientist. But if they can't deploy it, well, at least we've learned something. Regardless, we'll see you next episode for some more Kerbal Space Program and see how this flies. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. As normal, feel free to subscribe and share. As you normally would, click on the bell if you want notifications, but more importantly than all of it, leave comments for other people playing through the Breaking Ground DLC. And I'll see you next time. As always, guys, thanks for watching.